It's May 17th, 2018. Well, hello there, Cyclopeans. Let's get right to the latest sci-fi, fantasy, and horror headlines that we're seeing today. It's going to be starting with horror with Stephen King's The Outsider. We'll be getting some trailers, and that's, of course, that'll be a brand new movie. It's got multiple trailers. It's supposed to be pretty creepy, and so you Stephen King fans are going to get a double treat out of this, because we also got Stephen King news with the It Chapter 2 coming out. Andy Bean has been cast as Stanley, am I saying this right, Urus in It Chapter 2. So a double whammy for you Stephen King and horror fans. That's exciting news. And of course, Stephen King movies, they can be a coin toss, although It was fantastic. But sometimes you get these some of the Stephen King movies haven't been the best, but it's always fun. It's Stephen King. The books are fantastic. Moving on to Magic the Gathering. Those of you the card game, TCG Player, an excellent site, by the way. If you're into Magic the Gathering or any of the trading card games, the Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, a lot of different other things, check out TCG Player online. It's like Trading Card Game Player online, or TCG Player online. I think it's tcgplayeronline.com. And they have all kinds of deals on cards and stuff, and they're really good company. What am I trying to say on that? They have some Magic the Gathering articles almost daily, Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh articles, and the latest one is Magic the Gathering: the 3 best decks of Dominaria Standard. So the latest Magic the Gathering Dominaria cards are all the strategy and stuff like that. Let's see what we've got here. Moving on, after stumbling through that last piece, British horror movie Habit, now available on VOD. If you've seen Habit in the theater, that's going to VOD. And in horror video games, there is a new video game, or actually the Works of Mercy horror adventure game is going to be coming to Steam on June 7th, so keep an eye out for that. Also want to let you know on video game news, as always, Steam has their midweek madness sale going on. Pretty good deals going on there at Steam Games. And also, I hope I'm saying this right, GOG, G-O-G, GOG Games, or GOG.com. They have big sales. They'll knock stuff down like 90% off on some of their games, so always worth a look if you're looking for some new video games to play. A little bit more video game news. Valhalla, spelled really funny. It's VA-11 Hall, H-A-L-L-A, headed to PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch early 2019, for those of you following that game. And what else have we got on? We got a bunch of little video game news sprinkled around as that E3 gets closer and closer. There's two reviews on State of Decay 2. Not seeing the best on that, unfortunately. And from what I'm reading, it looks like it may even be buggy, which, if that's the case, would be infuriating, because nothing would send me to a rage more than buying a video game and finding bugs all over it, which tells me that the developer just didn't give a darn and kicked it out there to make as much money as they could, as fast as they could. And, the customers, players, and fans, be damned, will deal with it. They'll come back. They don't care enough. They're too stupid to stay away from us long. We got them, with a hook in their mouth. That's a crappy attitude, and it's a really poor way of doing business, and it really infuriates me, like I said, because there's no excuse for it. If you're going to put a game out, do it right. If you do it wrong, you're going to wind up with all kinds of problems. Nobody holds grudges like gamers. I'll tell you, I think all of you will agree with me on that one. Gamers remember when they got screwed, especially when you're forking out 40, 50, 60 bucks and more for a game. And a lot of these kids are young, and they don't have a whole lot of money, and they fork out a big chunk of change and come up with, crap. They're furious. So anyway, enough of that rant, but hey, you gamer designers and stuff like that, come on, think about this. Think of the fans. In superhero news, we've got Daredevil Season 3 is coming, and I love Daredevil. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed that of the bunch that came out between Daredevil, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, and then the Defenders. Really enjoyed Daredevil probably the most, although I do like Jessica Jones a lot. And Daredevil's fantastic, especially with with the criminals in there. And there's a criminal rumor of a particular criminal going to show up. I don't want to tell you who it is in case you don't want to be spoiled, but you want to just check out the Daredevil season 3 news link we've got. So that's going to be pretty exciting when that hits. The last 2 seasons were excellent. What else have we got in books? There's a sci-fi alien shapeshifter novel called Beholder's Eye by Julie Zernata, and it's part of a series. It's an older book. I guess it came out in the late 90s, but it's still, all those books are worth a second look. Never pass on a book because it might be 10, 15, even 50 years old. Some of these sci-fi, fantasy, and horror books. I mean, think about it. We were just talking about Stephen King. Would you not pick up a Stephen King book because he wrote it in the late 70s? Would you pass on The Shining? No. You'd be like, well, no, that's an old book. I don't want to read old horror. That sucks. And yet The Shining is one of the classics of horror. And the book is excellent, by the way. I've read it. Or how about It? There you go. So never miss a chance to check out some of these reviews on these old books because they're pretty good. And they're not really that old. We're talking a decade or two. So you sci-fi fans, again, we'll have the link up here. Julie Zernata, Beholder's Eye. Horror film review again. Killer Pinata, silly thing. I think it has Ron Jeremy in it. I know the new one does because I put it up on the site a while back. There's a second Killer Pinata out to satisfy the insatiable appetite of all the original Killer Pinata fans from 2015. This is the 2015 film I've got the link to, so someone actually went back and looked at that silly thing and reviewed it, and it's probably worth a look. If you don't mind a little humor in your horror, a little silliness, then definitely go check this thing out. It sounds like a great beer and pizza type movie. You can hang out with the guys or girls, or guys and girls, and just have a blast watching this silly thing. And I'm sure it's going to be a blood fest with killer pinatas running all over the place, somewhere up in the level of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, maybe. Amazon's Lord of the Rings series, they're saying it's going to may focus on a young Aragorn, and that made me really cringe because a young Aragorn, I don't remember a whole lot about a young Aragorn, even in Silmarillion. I could be wrong here. And Lord of the Rings Silmarillion fans, forgive me if I'm making a mistake here, but I don't remember there being a terrible lot on him growing up as a boy. I think it was just he was kind of out there and he appeared. They knew he was coming and he was hanging out in the woods, keeping low until he had to make his appearance. But I don't know what they're going to do here, and I'm kind of hoping they don't start writing their own way into the Lord of the Rings, because I've never seen that do so well. I'm really hoping if they're going to do this, I'd rather see more, put the Tom Bombadil story in there, or maybe a little more on, bring some Silmarillion into the thing, some history on that. That would be really cool. And if you haven't read the Silmarillion, definitely pick it up. It's a hard read, and it'll take you about a month. You're going to want to do a chapter a day, but it's worth it. And it's tricky, but it's like the Bible for the Lord of the Rings. It goes all the way back to the beginning of time and how everything, the worlds became the worlds, and actually where Sauron came from and all the big names, Elrond, the elves, and everybody. So very interesting book. Let's see, Deadpool 2. There's a couple Deadpool 2 reviews I've put up. Seeing good to decent reviews on this one. Nothing bad, but you didn't think it was going to be bad. I'd be very surprised if this movie was anything other than really good. But, there's always that critics like, well, I didn't like the way the costume was too shiny or something like that. Who knows, So anyway, a couple Deadpool 2 reviews for you. And X-Men fans, of which I am one, you will be glad to know that mutant-killing Sentinels will get a dangerous upgrade from an X-Man ally. I know who it is. I'm not going to tell you. But if you think about it, I'll just give you a little clue. Who's really good with technical stuff? Oops, I don't want to give anything too much away. But mutant-killing Sentinels are back. And anybody else out there, I think those things are pretty creepy. If you look at the Sentinels, they're almost like these like, I don't know, they're like zombie robot things, just on a mission to kill everything in sight. When I first started this, I think, who cares about giant sentinel robots? But then when you read into the series, they're pretty nasty. So looking forward to seeing these again. Pokemon Go fans, Pokemon Go Community Day update. I've got a link there because that's coming up. There's going to be a lot of Pokemon Go updates and news, and you can now find, if you're playing Pokemon Go, they're sending out updates all the time, telling you that you can find Pokemon Go, little Pokemon, different ones all over the place now. They're dropping lots of different Pokemon all around. So if you got the mobile game and you're running around with it, definitely pull it out today and try playing it for a bit. You'll probably get a whole bunch of new Pokemon to capture. Let's see, Gotham alum, and that's, I don't know who it is. He's going to launch a new Batman prequel series called Pennyworth, and I guess it's going to focus a lot on Alfred, and it's going to be set in 1960s London. Not looking forward to this one. I'm really sick and tired of the 60s. I wish they'd just go away. I'm tired of constantly going back and rehashing the 60s over and over again. Let's just, I don't know. I'm not really holding out much hope for this one, but we'll see. Could be hot. Gotham's doing well. They've got a season 5, so I think it's the last season for them too, but they're doing pretty good. So anyway, it looks like they're going to do a spin-off to Gotham, which is kind of almost like a spin-off to Batman in a way. If you are a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, Freddy, there's a fan trailer out that's got an artsy, stylish Elm Street reboot. It's kind of cool. You might want to check that out. Fans can do pretty good jobs with these movies. They'll put fan films. I've seen stuff with Terminator, Batman, and Predator come out by fans, and they're really, really good, well produced, and pretty good special effects for the low budget these guys and girls have making these little films, and they're worth a look. And I don't know why the big companies don't get on them, because I've seen some of them, to tell you the truth, were a little better than the movies that came out. And if you want to see some, do a search on Sci-Clops for Predator or Batman versus Terminator, or what else? We got Batman, Predator, and Terminator. Just do some searches on Sci-Clops. I got some old fan films in there that are really good. Some of them are animated, some of them are live action. Do check them out. There was a big buzz going around today on whether a Lando Calrissian movie was coming, and I put two links up on this. One, which was Nerdist, speculating on whether it was going to happen because they were getting a lot of info on this, and the other one was when we got I think we got the final word on it, although they're kind of, well, it's the final word, but, I think, again, there's the trial balloon that I was talking about yesterday on the podcast. I think someone really floated a trial balloon on this, because Solo isn't even out yet, and people are kind of not hearing the very best reviews about Solo, not as good as it should be, at least for reviews already. Rotten Tomatoes it's not trending too high on there. It's trending high, but not as high as it should. So I think somebody might have been floating a trial balloon on a Lando Calrissian movie, and it might have been a little too early. But anyway, now they're saying, well, that was a mistranslation. It was a French magazine that was talking to Kathleen Kennedy, and they misunderstood what she said, that she'd like to do it. And they said, well, it's coming. And then she said, no, I said I'd like to do it. So, and they're trying to prove that there was a mistranslation. At any rate, I still think it's a trial balloon of some kind floating around out there to see how it would work. In other Star Wars news, this is a funny one. Ron Howard talks about turning down the Phantom Menace. Boy, I'll bet you he's breathing a sigh of relief on that one, considering what the Phantom Menace did great and all, but, in retrospect, you're kind of like, it was a bit confusing at times and stuff. We won't go down that road right now, but Ron Howard was going to do it, apparently, and or he was being approached on it, and he talks about turning it down. If you want to read that interview, it's kind of cool. What do we got here? And comics, again. Back to comics, I was, we covered the X-Men, but there's another one that's selling out. This is interesting. Sonic the Hedgehog #4 has sold out. I believe #1 sold out too. I don't know about 2 and 3. I didn't look it up, but I know the Sonic comic, whatever it is, it's hot and it's selling out like mad. So do check into that if you're a comic fan or just a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. What else have we got? World of Tanks. Back to video games. I'm going to be all over the place on here because I don't like to. I just want to kind of jump from topic to topic here. The World of Tanks is going to add the Centurion. It's an Australian army tank. I used to play World of Tanks. Not a bad game. It's a little tricky on a phone. I haven't played it in a while. I found it was just too many darn controls, and it was just just frustrating after a while. But it's a pretty good game if you like World of Tanks. You're either really good at it or you're like me and you're kind of struggling through it and everybody's yelling at you for not shooting enough. So anyway, new tank on there from an Australian Army tank called the Centurion. Other video game news, Motorcycle Racing Sim Ride 3 will be out this November. A little article on that. And you might want to check that out if you're into the motorcycle racing video game. And an anime, got a new Dragon Ball anime project coming out, revealed. They're discussing that now, getting ready to drop that one. And of course, Dragon Ball's huge in the anime world, so you Dragon Ball fans will really love that. Got a couple other really interesting pieces here with South by Southwest interview with A Quiet Place writers Brian Woods and Scott Beck. I think that would be you definitely want to check that out if you liked A Quiet Place or science fiction and horror, because A Quiet Place, we discussed this a little bit. It was actually, there was a talk at one point that it was going to be another chapter in the Cloverfield saga, and they decided just to make its own movie. But it does sound kind of Lovecraftian, and I have heard talk about a Quiet Place 2, a sequel to this thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys have to say and how fast they're going to move on a second movie, if at all. In other news with the CW, the Arrow, if you're following the Arrow series, the Arrowverse, or the Arrowverse, you know how they interchange a lot of the characters back and forth, which is pretty cool. I'm glad they do that with the Flash, the Arrow, and these guys. There's a rumor Batwoman may be showing up over there, so just want to let you fans, you Bat fans know that Batwoman may be coming in. And what else are we going to talk about really fast? Just wanted to give a quick coverage to a game I was playing. If you are a fan of Lovecraft or Lovecraftian horror board games, I was playing the Arkham Horror board game. Now, it's an older board game. It's about 10 years old or more. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know entirely if it's still even in print. And it's got some additions to it, but it's a great board game. I will put links up to it. I've taken some pictures of it. I'm not going to do a full review on it. All I'm saying, it's a little complicated. It takes a few hours to learn, and if you play it 2 or 3 or 4 times, you get pretty good at it pretty fast. And the coolest thing about it is that you can play alone, and that's a neat thing. Like you can play by yourself. You can set the whole game up, and I've got one, believe it or not, it's set up right now in my game room, and I'm actually playing a game, just trying to see if I can make it. And basically what you are is you're an investigator, and you're in Arkham, and you're starting at one spot, and gates begin to open, and creatures begin to come out, and things begin to happen, and you got to find clues and shut the gates, and the gates are opening faster and faster, and you're trying to move quicker and quicker to shut them before the Great Old One is released, because after a certain number of gates get open, the Great Old One is released, and then of course you got to fight the Great Old One. And you can play with a bunch of people. I think you can play with up to 8 or 10 people or something. Can't remember the number, but it's an interesting game because being a board game, you can play this thing. I've played it a whole bunch of times, and I've had games where it was over in 15 minutes because I accidentally wound up taking the wrong turns and just pulling bad luck and getting a Great Old One early in the game and getting wiped out literally within 20 minutes. And other times it's gone on for almost for hours and hours. So it's a really cool game in that sense that you never know what you're going to get, and it's all over the place. And I love games like that. So a lot of monsters. Then there's expansion packs, and it comes with these cool gaming dice that I bought. There's expansion packs, and you can add more and more to the game. And it's not cheap, but if it's out there and you like the board games and you like Lovecraft, definitely pick up a copy of Arkham Horror. And I'll have I did put some pictures up earlier. I'll see if I'll get the links to those too for you. In the meantime, I think that's going to be all for today. So we'll see you very soon. Have a great day.